Benue PDP Caucus of the House of Representatives. The Benue PDP Reps Caucus cautions Akume, rejects call for state of emergency. The attention of the Benue State People's Democratic Party PDP Caucus in the House of Representatives has been drawn to a shocking press conference by the Minister for Special Duties, Senator George Akume, on Monday, 30th August 2021 in Abuja. In the said press conference, loaded with expletives and the copious use of demeaning adjectives unbecoming of a person of his status, the former governor of our state unequivocally called for an emergency rule in Benue State, citing a perceived inability of His Excellency Gov Samuel Ortom to contain the herdsmen killing in the state. We wish to respond to the issues raised in the press conference by Senator George Akume, who has never lent his voice to the clarion call for the cessation of incessant killings in Benue State, despite his assumed closeness to the president. Rather, he chose to attack the person of the governor and called for the disbandment of the livestock guards so as to bring further hardship on the displaced people of Benue State, with over 1 million people in IDP camps as we speak. It is pathetic that the person of Akume, who has benefited greatly from the Benue people, can call for emergency rule in Benue State and invite soldiers to further rape and maim our people. The governor, as far as members of this caucus are aware, has called ad infinitum on the Muhammadu Buhari-led federal government to intervene and arrest the protracted bloodletting in the state, with little or, in very many instances, no response from the federal government. We will not dwell on the allegations of a lack of accountability against Governor Ortom on a plethora of issues as raised by Senator George Akume, but we leave him to the legal dictum that says he who claims must prove. The caucus is, however, displeased with the improper language deployed by the minister in addressing His Excellency Governor Samuel Ortom, the defender of the Benue Valley. The caucus calls on the leader of the All Progressives Congress in Benue, and indeed all stakeholders behind his onslaught against the government and people of Benue State, to retract the call for emergency rule in the state for the interest of democracy and explore other means of resolving the nagging and persistent insecurity in the state. This caucus calls on President Muhammadu Buhari to embrace his conscience, rise up and end the bloodletting caused by his kith and kin in Benue State now. The caucus calls on the former governor of our state, Dr. George Akume, to retrace his steps and employ dialogue and amity with the governor of the state, His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ortom. The caucus wishes to state clearly that all Governor Ortom, as the Benue leader, has been saying on the insecurity situation in Benue State are the collective opinion of the entire Benue people and not the personal opinion of the governor, and should not be personalized. The caucus also rejects Senator Akume's call for the disbandment of the livestock guards in the implementation of the Anti-Open Grazing Act. The caucus wishes to caution the presidential spokesman, Mr. Garba Shehu, to stop trivializing and misconstruing Governor Ortom's outspokenness for an attack on President Muhammadu Buhari. Governor Samuel Ortom has the highest regards for the president, and will not do or say anything to drag the presidency in the mud. The governor, however, will never sacrifice the lives of his people on the altar of the presidency. This caucus calls on the federal government to urgently redeem her promise of 10 billion naira to resettle the internally displaced people in Benue State. We appeal to the former governor and one of our leaders in the state, Senator George Akume, to eschew his disagreement with the incumbent governor and embrace efforts to end attacks on innocent citizens and indigents of our dear state. We call on all traditional, political, and neutral persons with the interest of Benue at heart to intervene and foster unity for the common good of our entire state. We also call on the leadership of the National Assembly to intervene and nip promptly in the bud the calls for the breach of democratic structure in Benue through the instrument of a disruptive emergency rule. As the Benue PDP caucus in the House of Representatives, we hereby pass unequivocally a vote of confidence on the leadership of our governor, His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ortom, the defender of the Benue Valley.
Carnage in Benue. You know very clearly, both of us practice in Benue, that even the so-called security vote that had accrued to governors when we were there was not even enough when there was no serious insecurity the type we have today. And now, under the leadership of Ortom, we've had a lot of challenges. And I'm telling you, assuming the figure you read that was correct is not enough, assuming it is true. Because I know very clearly, I've participated in all the security meetings, especially in Zone C. I know very clearly that the Operation White Stroke, right now in Zone C, is headquartered in my local government. I know what we are doing there. And the governor is overstretched. The government is overstretched. In fact, the entire state is overwhelmed. In any case, what we expect the minister to do for us, as somebody who professes to be close to the president, is to ensure that the 10 billion naira is released. That 10 billion naira that the federal government promised us through the vice president is released. Since 2016, we've moved motions upon motions upon motions on the floor of the House of Reps, and nothing has happened. Must we wait until everybody is killed? You and I, must we have attacks before we know very clearly that the federal government has failed us? I personally nicknamed Governor Tom as the defender of the Benue Valley. Then he was still in APC, and I knew why. Because for a governor under a very serious threat to stand up to be counted for his people, that alone calls for a lot of commendation. When he came up with the anti-grazing law, many of you chastised him. You insulted him. You called him names. But today, what happened? All the states of the Federation, almost all, have copied from Benue. And they now have anti-grazing law. The reason is very simple. It's like what Mahatma Gandhi said. Once you come up with a proposal for a change, they chastise you, they condemn you, and then later they accept.
As members of this caucus, we have said clearly here, we do not want to reduce this thing to politics of individuals. Whatever the cause of whatever statements that leader made, we as a caucus in this party, in this state, are saying that we do not want the issues of insecurity in our state to be reduced to personal political issues. The matters are matters of life and death and not of people's political ambitions. We insist that the leaders and our people know that this is our tribe. We do not want to reduce this thing to personal politics.
Now, my colleague was speaking earlier, and he made reference to the fact that security is primarily in the control of the federal government. Yes, we agree that there's general insecurity. There are kidnappings, there are gang killings, and there are all sorts of crime going on in our land. But the truth of the matter is that all this lies in the hands of the presidency. The presidency controls the police, the presidency controls the military, the presidency controls the intelligence arms of security. So what do you really want the governor to do? I mean, for us as legislators, we can only make a cry. We can cry and request and ask that the government do the right thing. We are pushing for laws that are looking to devolve power and devolve some of these instruments to the state governments. But that's the best we can do as politicians and as legislators. But the bulk of this responsibility lies in the federal government. The bulk of this lies in the presidency. And we have to give responsibility where responsibility is due. We cannot come here and claim responsibility for political killings or assassinations around the country, because that is not in our purview. The responsibility of this, the bulk of this stops at the desk of the presidency, and which is what our governor has been crying for, which is what he's being vilified for. He's been asking that the presidency should rise up and speak and stand against all these happenings in our land.
Part of the planning for that funding is security. If that fund is released, that fund will also be used for securing these places that the infrastructures were destroyed. If you look at the strategic plan for the implementation of that fund, the Nigerian Army were supposed to be the one to even go in with the infrastructure. So part of that fund is also to provide security in those areas that people are displaced.
Conscience is an open wound, only truth can heal it. We don't need a soothsayer to tell us that there are unabated killings in Benue State and other parts across the country. Do we need a soothsayer to tell us?
No.
As journalists, every generation must ask us, if us authority discover its word, fulfill it or betray it. And if I have been coming here with a stink position of what you want to report, so be it. But at the end of the day, history will expose you. It's a serious issue. The owners of life and property hinge and revolve around government. As a people, we are looking at the possible best ways of salvaging the situation. It's not to throw blames, but are we happy in this country with what is happening, what is going on? As journalists, it is expected that you will sip or see the chaff from the seed, so that at the end of the day, we'll come to a very conclusive way of solving the problem. We are not here to hang people. We are not here to personalize the president of the country. But as our father, we have to tell the truth, because only truth that will set us free in this country. Thank you.